Charlotte didn't follow the same playbook as most big cities. It grew later, it grew differently, and that affects how the city works today. And so I'm going to be breaking down how Charlotte compares to other cities and what that means for people, maybe you, that are thinking about moving to here. So we're going to talk about what do people expect Charlotte to be, what surprises them after moving, and why does Charlotte feel different in real life compared to what you might imagine or compared to other cities like New York, Chicago, Atlanta, etc. So let's talk first about why Charlotte is different, the big picture. So why doesn't Charlotte feel like most big cities? Now, I'll say for me personally, I've lived in, technically it was upstate New York, Atlanta, Chicago, DFW, and I've been to most of the large metros in the United States in addition to actually living in those. And there's a few things that really stand out, but I'd say probably the biggest thing is Southern hospitality is very real here. And even though there are a lot of people that move to Charlotte from other big areas, we always call true locals of Charlotte unicorns because they're so rare. Even despite that, Southern hospitality really is in the culture. It's a part of living here, and it's something I really enjoy because you have small talk with people in line at the grocery store, and you actually talk to your neighbors when you see them outside. You wave. It's just very ingrained in the culture. And I'll say coming here, it was a little bit of a culture shock when I first got here, because if you're coming from the Northeast, every time somebody does something like that, at least my first thought is like, what's their angle, right? And there's no angle. It's just people are very friendly here. And that's one of the biggest things that when you're going to someplace like Charlotte, you will notice right away. Now, structurally, and I'm going to share the map so you can see, structurally, there's a couple of things that really make Charlotte very different. One thing you're going to notice is there's lots of green both inside and outside of the city. When you're looking at parks, for instance, there's not a lot of green space in many big cities. Like outside of Central Park in New York, there's not a ton of big, spacious parks. Outside of, again, just a handful of parks in DFW, there's not a lot of really great green space. And here you're going to notice, like I'll show you a few. Freedom Park, there's so many wonderful, beautiful spaces here that you can't enjoy very many places. And this is just one of many of the parks here in Charlotte. Here you have Park Road Park. There's some great tennis courts over there. I like to play tennis over there. Marion Deal Park. I think there's also tennis courts over here as well. I love to play tennis. But you're going to notice like there's a lot of green space. There's a lot of parks, also country clubs, and there's a lot of places that greenways too. I know different parts of the country call it different things. Greenway is just like a parkway or a trail walkway, and there's some really beautiful ones around. And especially like we get a lot of outdoorsy people that want to be in the city, they want to be somewhere warm, and they also want access to a lot of this kind of green space. Charlotte gives you all of that in a way that's really hard to find most places. So I'll say that's one of the big things that you see sets the city apart is it's green and it's clean. Now, another way is also you're going to notice the entire city is not laid out in a grid, right? If we go to any of these other major cities, like you go to Washington, right? It's all in rows and columns. This thing looks like an Excel spreadsheet, right? If we go up to New York, what are we going to find in New York? We're going to find, whether it's Brooklyn, whether it's Midtown, you're going to find an Excel spreadsheet. You go to Philly, you go to even Indianapolis, where I'm from, right? If you go to Indianapolis, what are you going to find? An Excel spreadsheet. It literally looks like an Excel spreadsheet. But when you go to Charlotte, the heritage and the history here is very different. Many of the main roads in the city were not master planned up front as much as they were just existing trade routes, mining trails, and things that were already there, already used. And so it has a much more organic feel to it as a result. You go to Uptown, there's about, 10 by 10 blocks that are in that grid layout. And then you go anywhere else and you're going to notice it's laid out much more organically, kind of like a spider web. And there's a couple of benefits to that. One of the big ones is there's always a couple of ways to get around. So even if there is traffic going one particular way, usually you got a couple of back road ways you could go. But it's also just like you're not stuck on straight, flat, topographically boring roads. There's always some curves and some trees. And also because of that, there is more wasted land when things get developed. And wasted land has trees on it, has greenery. And so we have a very rich, full green growing season. I enjoy it. A lot of people enjoy it. When you try to compare Charlotte to a lot of other cities, be that New York, Miami, DFW, LA, B tier cities like San Diego or Pittsburgh or something, when you try to make those comparisons, it kind of falls apart because Charlotte is very much one of a kind, both geographically. We do have a lot of open space around the city, with the exception of the Catawba River kind of being a hard stop on the west side. There's only so many bridges over the water. We have, again, to the north, we have Lake Norman. Not a lot of cities like Atlanta does, but it's a fully natural lake, so they get a lot of fluctuations in water levels. A lot of people will talk about how Charlotte is the number 2 banking hub in the United States. If you're not familiar, that is true. The only larger banking hub in the entirety of the United States than Charlotte, North Carolina, is New York City. And if you look at the hiring numbers over the past few years, Charlotte has, particularly in professional services like banking and banking adjacent fields, had one of the highest growth rates for jobs of anywhere in the United States. And so, at least adjusted for the size of the city. And so, I think, now lynch me in the comments if you like, I think there's a very real possibility that at some point in the future, Charlotte will become the banking hub of the United States for a couple of different reasons. But the biggest one being that New York is really expensive. And publicly traded companies are not dumb. They're very intelligent, especially when it comes to saving money. And if you can hire the same analyst for half the cost in Charlotte that you got to pay him just to barely get by in New York, and they can do very nicely here, they can have great lifestyle. Charlotte does have aspects that it shares with other major cities. But when you get down to it, there's just a few things that are very, very unique, especially if we zoom out. This I-85 corridor that branches across Charlotte, Salisbury, Greensboro, Durham, Raleigh, Chapel Hill, Cary, all through here. This whole corridor and going into South Carolina towards Greenville and Spartanburg, both, like, there's just been so much investment, partially because it is a lot cheaper and partially because it is also just doesn't have some of the downsides that other cities do. Like, we have a little bit of traffic here because we are growing into being a real city, but we don't have Atlanta traffic. If you even interesting thing I just came across recently from going to a new home construction builder conference that they were talking about is you look at Atlanta, you are easily, an hour plus up to Alpharetta and down to Fayetteville. Or some of I'm being told that these are considered suburbs, the further suburbs, but still suburbs, like Noonan all the way up to, I think it was Gainesville. That's well over an hour, almost an hour and a half. Whereas the Charlotte equivalent to that would probably be, maybe Salisbury. Realistically, it's probably more like Kannapolis and down to Rock Hill on the outside. And even then, it's like 45 minutes. So there's structurally some things that make it a very attractive place to grow, to hire, and to set up for long-term company growth. And again, it shares these aspects with other cities, but the comparisons fall apart because Charlotte is very much one of a kind, in my opinion. Let's talk about what other big cities have done over time. So how did older big cities grow? What shaped their downtowns very early? And why did these cities still revolve around one core? So I'm from the Midwest, so I know Chicago, right? The entire city burned down. What did they do? They planned it from scratch. New York master planned the city from scratch. Philly and Boston, very similar stories. Like, they were all master planned from scratch. And so Charlotte also has had some master planning. You go into especially some of the messier history of the 20th century. There was definitely some intentional choices that were made, some for the better, some not for the better, in Charlotte. But a lot of again, the history of it being a region for ore mining and for trade and just like the trails that people would beat through the bush still carries today, again, in that spider web layout. I mean, all the cities still revolve around one core. And don't get me wrong, Charlotte, as a result of being a large employment hub for banking, all the high rises and things in Uptown, there still is definitely a core that the city kind of revolves around. If you're in that world, you want to be either, with like if you want to be close, if you want to be within 5 minutes, geographically, there's only so many places that are going to be within 5 minutes of Uptown. Like for a lot of the banking districts right up here in Uptown, you're gonna want to be probably in one of the four wards. So the Charlotte City Center, first ward, second ward, third ward, fourth ward. You probably want to be either there or within a short 10 to 15 minute commute on the light rail, or the gold rail, which means that your choices are South End, Optimus Park, maybe Noda, Elizabeth, to the other side, Wesley Heights or Enderley Park or Seversville. Like there's not that many options because just geographically there is a little bit of a hub, but the difference being, there still is so much around the city. Like there are employment hubs in Mooresville. There are employment hubs in Cornelius, Huntersville, down in Ballantyne. Actually, a lot of financial jobs are also, especially insurance, are down in Ballantyne. There's a lot of stuff out in the burbs too. So, how did Charlotte grow differently from other major metro areas? This is one of my very fun facts because you will see so many people saying Charlotte's full or North Carolina's full, try South Carolina, or South Carolina's full, try North Carolina. There's a lot of people, including many people that moved here 20 years ago, that would love to see the city frozen in time. And so for the Charlotte Concord Gastonia MSA, because that is the full MSA, it ranges, I want to say it's like 12 or 14 counties between both North and South Carolina. You're going to notice that for the past like 30, 40 years, it has been very consistently, give or take, about 20% growth per decade. So there was a big, big jump between 1980 and 1990 when this city pretty much doubled. And then since then, it has been on track, give or take, to do about 20-ish percent, including right now since 2020. Last I checked, I think we're on track to do about 22, 23% growth. And so while that's just a little bit up, a lot of cities like DFW, Austin, Texas, cities in Florida, Florida as a whole, saw this giant influx, particularly through COVID. And some areas saw big influx, around the 2010 marker, give or take, early 2000s. But what you don't see is that the growth is just like stopping or slowing down. You expect it to slow down a little bit as a city gets larger just because it's harder to keep, like, to go from one person to two people, that's 100% increase. But it's one person to two people, right? It's a one person increase. Logistically, very easy. When you get into much larger numbers now, like 1950 at like 200,000 to now like 2.7 million. That's 2.7 million logistically much harder to grow, but we're seeing consistent growth, which is from both an investment standpoint as well as just like looking at the area and the long-term prospects of the area. It's a very healthy indicator. And I love looking at this number because again, you see some dips and you see some spikes in the growth, but it's been right in line, like very strong long-term growth for the area. Why didn't Charlotte build density earlier than right now? Because you're starting to see some real density, especially in the uptown skyline. A big reason is just there's so much open land. Like if you look at a map of new builds and when and where they were built over the past 30 years, that's like one of the things I love doing is looking at population growth trends and new construction trends, because I feel like it really tells a story about, like, you can literally see the history of a city through like what were the kinds of houses, kinds of building, kinds of condo buildings, kind of townhomes that were being built at different times, where they were, the price points relative to the rest of the market. You can learn a lot about the history of a city. And in Charlotte in particular, there was just a lot of open land until recently. And now I think there's only about 50,000 open lots, which might sound like a lot, but in all of the Charlotte, Mecklenburg County area, there's only about 50,000 open lots left, if I remember correctly. And that is not very many. There's got to be a lot of improvement in the utilization of dirt as well, for underutilized dirt, as well as for the lots that are there, they need to be brought up to their highest and best use in order to accommodate a lot of the population growth that we've seen. Because, I mean, as it is now, we're about 150 people a day that are moving here. During COVID, it was like 117. Now it's up to 157. Very strong, consistent population growth. It's speeding up. And a lot of people are moving to the suburbs. Unless you're moving for a job in Uptown, most people do move to the suburbs because that's where you're going to see more open dirt, more open lots. It has begun to build density, but I mean, people have kind of found out about it. It was one of the hidden gems, one of the secrets of the South for a long time, and particularly during the early 2000s, early 2010s, the word got out, and there's no getting the cat back in the bag. Looking at Charlotte's timeline versus other cities, Charlotte really began to take off in the 90s, because or the 80s going into the 90s, because my goodness, I mean, the city doubled from 1980 to 1990. And the growth matters, or the timeline of the growth matters, just because some of the real estate that was developed during the 80s is starting to get either updated or just brought up to highest and best use, depending on what it was, especially if it's like, small home on a big lot. Some of those are getting torn down and then being built into either a nicer home on the same lot or multiple homes on that same lot. And so I feel like in Charlotte's current growth chapter, there's a lot of exciting opportunities. There was the Uniform Developmental Ordinance, the UDO, a year and a half ago. I think it went into effect. I was one of the first people to talk about it. And what it did was it allowed developers to start putting up to 3 units with, at least at the time, I haven't checked recently, no square footage limits. Now, if it was explicitly banned by an HOA or by a restriction on the deed prior to that ordinance passing, then those get grandfathered in. But anything that was not explicitly banned before that passing now is eligible for up to 3 units with, again, no limit on square footage. So at least the initial draft of that had no limits. I should probably double check just to make sure I'm telling you correctly. But there's, there's a lot of opportunity in this current chapter of growth in Charlotte for both for investors and developers, but also just for everyday people to find newer homes or some homes that have some character that are being updated and brought up to their current highest and best use. I guess one thing I didn't talk about, so Charlotte, again, has more of a spread out layout. Chicago, it has the Magnificent Mile. It has that one central core. Or in New York also, again, many dense cores. Atlanta, partial spread, partially has a dense core. Charlotte has a very small dense core. Now, admittedly, much smaller than the rest of those. It will probably continue to grow into its shoes, so to speak. It also has these other cores outside of the city that we expect to keep growing. So, like, you look at north of the city, you look at Cornelius and Davidson and Birkdale Village and some of the areas around there. I expect that to keep going. You look at Ballantyne and some of the big, mid-rise buildings for insurance and data analytics and things like that. You expect that to keep growing. Like, it's not gonna stop. It might not grow as quickly as Uptown, but it's gonna keep growing. We have many different industries that fuel Charlotte's growth beyond just banking. There's a lot of consulting, engineering. I always call it, the left brain industries. You have accounting, finance, banking, consulting, engineering, manufacturing. A lot of left brain industries here that are heavy hitters. Compared to many other cities, New York, a lot of finance, Chicago, some legacy in the core, and also a lot of tourism, and also some financial and other things too. But a lot of it's just like legacy businesses. And then Charlotte, again, we have multiple hubs here. And also, like I mentioned before, Ballantyne has its own miniature hub for insurance and finance. There's a mini hub up towards Mooresville because there's the Lowe's National HQ up there. A lot of NASCAR is based out of there too. And because we have multiple employment hubs, it is kind of nice from a city growth perspective because there's no reason to develop everything around just one core. So you start to see more development in these different clusters, which gives you better affordability, better commute times, less traffic compared to other similarly sized cities. And Uptown, again, has some phenomenal, iconic high rises like the Wells Fargo building and the Bank of America building. And even though they are, beautiful and great contributions to the skyline, it's not dominant. Like Uptown doesn't dominate everything. I'm sure a lot of that's cost, but also a lot of it's just convenience. Like you don't need to. You can just get land somewhere else and develop around there, and give your employees a much better quality of life. Charlotte is very much like a B tier city compared to New York City or Chicago or that sort of thing. The daily life for most people, if you're out in the burbs, you're either commuting in or you're working from home. You have some yard most of the time, unless you're in one of those condo buildings. There are or a townhome. There are the central areas where you can walk, to multiple upscale restaurants. You have concierge and security and amenities in the building. Like that sort of condo lifestyle exists. If you want to be in a luxury townhome, you want to be in a luxury apartment, you want to be in something that's self-enclosed and gated, like those exist too. If you want to be in a cute little community, maybe it's bungalows, maybe it's 2 stories, maybe it's cottage style, maybe it's just regular suburban neighborhood. We have a lot of those too, both in the city, outside of the city. And the general feel of that day-to-day life compared to especially like New York City, Chicago, Boston, is going to feel a lot slower. And I won't say slow like ooh, slow. It's not like DMV slow. It's slower as in just like people are less rushed. At ease is a good term that I would use compared to a lot of other places. And you still get a little bit of the spice of the fast-paced kind of banking, finance. You still get a little bit of that, especially in Uptown. But you don't have to stay in that. Like if you want to go home to the burbs, you want quiet life, white picket fence, dogs running around the yard, that sort of stuff. Like you can have that too. You see people biking and throwing around the football in a quiet little community. Like you have that too. I will say one other thing too. So Charlotte has 212 different neighborhoods plus 30 or so different suburbs. It's a lot, especially for like people don't realize just how many neighborhoods there are here, how many different areas there are here. And trying to navigate that can be really tough because there's so many different areas. Like you see each of these: Greer Heights, Eastover, Wendover, Sedgwood, Myers Park, Montfort, Madison Park, Barclay Downs, South Park, Sharon Woods, Governor Square, East Forest, Ponderosa Wingate, Reed Park, Brown Road, Steel Creek, Southwest Charlotte, like all these different areas, right? West Lake Wylie is technically a neighborhood, not to be confused with Lake Wylie, not to be confused with the actual lake named Lake Wylie. We have some confusing naming conventions here. But all that to say, just in Mecklenburg, 212 different neighborhoods, plus then all the different towns and things outside of the city. It can be really overwhelming. It is really cool though, because I'm firmly believe like there is truly something for anybody here, and that's really fun. I think that's really fun. You can find just about any sort of lifestyle, day-to-day amenities, things that are nearby, combination of home prices and lifestyle. And like I love really nice gyms. There are, even in a city this size, many really nice gyms, whether you like yoga classes or you like Soul Cycle or you like meathead lifting gym, or you just want a regular 24-hour neighborhood gym. There's so many different options, and there's so many different amenities and things. Like every single one of these different neighborhoods and towns and areas has its own feel, own vibe, own rhythm. And so I guarantee you, to bring this full circle again, there's something for everybody here. Does not mean that everything is for anybody, right? Nobody will love everything that Charlotte has to offer, because almost everybody will love something that Charlotte has to offer. So it appeals to a lot of different people. And choosing where it is that you're going to live is tough. There's a lot of different home options. It can be difficult to know where to even start. And so that's why I put together the Charlotte Areas Quiz. It is free. It takes all of about 40 seconds. Scan the QR code. You can just tap through it. Again, it's about as easy as it looks. And you'll be able to get a personalized list of different areas specific to how you answer these questions that are worth more research. And it'll take it from 212 plus 30 plus, 250 plus different areas down to a list of about 7 to 10. And it really narrows it down for you a lot, so you can know what other videos from me to watch and make the most of your research time. If you also would like to consult with me one-on-one for free, you have that option after you take the quiz, but there's no pressure. You can just take the quiz. I appreciate everybody that has sat with me for the last hour and 22 minutes. I am trying to do this on a daily basis going into this next year. I'm very excited to do that. If you have any ideas, questions, comments, concerns, anything that you can share to either give me ideas for future live streams or just things that I might be able to answer. If anybody's got something, leave it down below. And thanks so much for watching. Take care. Talk soon. And stay warm out there, because I know it's a little bit chilly with the ice. But hope you're having a great week. Bye.